Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Welcome to another one of the 2025-26 Project Orchids videos. This is the last plant in the series, plant number 5. And in addition to that, it's the final video in the whole project. So this is the last one and it's going to be quick. So basically I've tried to do all of these final episodes differently. This one is basically going to be some stills, some very short video clips, and I will redo a soundtrack. We're going to go through each one of them very quickly, and then I'll be back at the end to have a look at the plant as it is now. There may be a bit of a surprise. Let's get going. Okay, so this is our first look at the Cymbidium copper. At this point we had a nice healthy plant with a spike with blooms, and to have a plant like this at the start of the project I thought was really good. Chosen by the viewers, of course, out of a selection that I provided, but nonetheless this was the most popular one. And yeah, I mean, at this stage of the game this was looking good. Things don't always stay the same, but nonetheless our first look was a nice look. So on to June. Now in June our flowers had finished, the spike had been removed, and what we were looking at now was 2 new growths pushing on, yeah, quite nicely. The leaves are still quite short compared with the full-size older leaves, but nonetheless the 2 new growths are pushing on nicely, and so far the plant is still looking good. We've got no yellowing leaves, no leaf drop, and all the bulbs are actually leaved. So at the moment it's still a very good looking plant. I'm very pleased, and yes, let's move on. And the last one is one of my larger Cymbidiums. This was Cymbidium copper, again chosen by yourselves. The difference we've got really is that the growths are maturing. So last time we looked at this we were comparing the size of these leaves on this new growth with some of the older leaves, and they came up short, whereas now they're longer. So the leaves on this new growth have pushed on larger than what was on the plant before. There is another new growth here, again pushing on nicely. Were there just the 2? I think yes, just the 2. But the change is, sorry, I have to turn my camera around the other way. It's really weird, when I turn the screen around the other way it's upside down and then it goes whoop and flips back up the right way. This is the change here. I presume that leaf's not in the way. Well, it isn't now. Here is the change. Now at this time of year, coming out of a new growth, that is highly likely to be a spike. I can't emphatically say that. I mean, relatively speaking, Cymbidiums are a new genus for me. I've built up a collection over a few years, but there's no signs of anything else on the plant that's new. So the only new thing that we didn't have last time is this growth here. And like I say, hopefully it's a spike. Okay, when we got to September, we actually confirmed that we did have a spike growing. Unfortunately, the plant is now starting to go downhill. It's dropped quite a few leaves and we now have back bulbs with no leaves at all. Nonetheless, the new growths have progressed, and effectively we are starting the cycle of this Cymbidium again at this particular point in the year. So growth has progressed and we are now starting a spike. The spikes take quite a long time to get from the point that you can see them and you notice them, because sometimes they hide a bit for a while,
and actually progressing to produce buds and then finally blooms. And this can actually take months. So we'll have to wait and see, and it'll be a while, but nonetheless we have a spike. And last but not least is the Cymbidium copper. Best laid plans, my idea of putting the board upright was that so I could get a decent picture of the Cymbidium completely surrounded by blue. Well, without moving that, I can't get far enough back. So I'm actually filming it from over here on the side. Tough, that's how it's going to have to be. I'm not doing a comparison this time anyway. Maybe next time I'll actually move the staging out of the way, and because I have to get directly in line for it to work. So we discussed last time that this is my Cymbidium that's gone downhill the most because it's dropped the most leaves. Well, it's stopped doing that. No more leaves have dropped, none have turned yellow. So basically it may just be one of those that drops its leaves on the oldest bulbs relatively quickly. Now some Cymbidiums hold their leaves 3, 4, possibly even more years, and some start dumping leaves at the end of the second year, which might be one. It might be one of these, but we've now got one soggy mess that's just nothing in particular, and 3 big leafless back bulbs, and the whole plant is now right up against the edge of the pot, so it needs repotting. And I would suggest that come the right time I will be taking this out of its pot and cutting the back end of the plant off, leaving it with 2 growths and whatever new growths it decides to put up for the next growing season next year, which may only be 1, it may be 2. But given that I doubt if there's a huge amount of strength in these back bulbs. I mean, this one's tiny compared with what we've got here, and that one's quite large, that one's medium. But what we do have that has progressed quite well is the flower spike, and these blooms will be open soon. They're separating away from the stem, and they've started to show colour and the individual sepals. You see the gap down there? Well, these are sepals, and you know what's inside is petals and the lip. So it shouldn't be too long before this is in bloom. Now, strictly speaking, there's hardly any difference between 6 weeks ago and now. And given the fact that it's in bloom, that's quite impressive, you know. And so I consequently looked up. This one opened its first bloom on this spike towards the end of November. So about the third, just at the end of the 3rd week of November, that sort of time. And we are now at the end of January, and the blooms are showing no signs of going over. In fact, I lied. You've just got a touch of brown on this bloom here. Just. So maybe they are going to go over relatively soon, but I am well pleased with the amount of time I've got out of these blooms. They're very attractive, got a lovely pattern in the lip, nice veining, and quite honestly, compared with last year, the blooms aren't quite as bright, so we do have a slight difference. And the last one is the Cymbidium copper, and I have to give up on the pretty presentation with this because the plant's just too big. Well, you could say my board's not big enough, but I've stood it upright rather than lengthways, so it's now portrait. So it at least goes up to the top of the plant, but then it's not wide enough. So either way, it doesn't work. And I've had to get the camera off onto my hand so that we can have a look at this. Now, this Cymbidium has been in bloom. The very first bloom cracked open in the middle of November, and we're now in the middle of March. I reckon that's pretty good going. So it's a plant well worth hanging on to. There's no sign of the new growth yet, but that's probably because it's still hanging on to the blooms. The blooms are going, one's already dropped. I mean, they are starting to get tatty around the edges, and they've lost their colour, they faded. So they're a lot paler looking than they would be naturally. What we've got is 2 leaved bulbs, which are now effectively old bulbs, and a load of back bulbs that are coming off. Now there's no room for a new growth coming off of the latest bulb. It's too tight. If you look at the size of the bulbs, it's too tight to the pot, so it has to be repotted. And it's actually, I think this is its 3rd year. Probably, maybe it's 4th. I think it's probably more like 3.5. But it needs to be repotted for the position of the plant. Lost a few leaves, only 1 or 2, but they've come off this oldest bulb. But if all the leaves come off of this oldest bulb, that leaves 1 leaved bulb, and that's not a strong plant. So I'm hoping the spike's going to come off soon. I'm not going to cut it off until it really has finished, though. You know, I mean, there's still a couple of blooms that are reasonable. Well, there's 1. The others are getting a bit sad, but yeah, I mean, you see they are getting a bit sad. But it's lasted incredibly well, and it's a nice self-supporting spike. Look at the size and strength of that spike. No staking required. Absolutely rigid, all on its own. So I like that. It's not a large number of blooms, but the blooms are large and they do open up reasonably well. So I like this one. But yes, we will need a repot. I'm going to remove the back bulbs completely. I mean, this one's soft, so it's starting to rot. Yeah, the one closest to the plant I'm keeping is also starting to get a bit soft. So as soon as the spike comes off, I'd hope to see a new growth before I repot it. Okay, so this is the plant as it is today. It's probably the Cymbidium that's gone downhill the most and the fastest of any of the ones that I've got in the collection. The reason is unknown, but having taken a look at it now, it goes to the top of the list to be repotted, because I think there may be some sort of bacterial infection. Basically, all of the bulbs that had leaves on at the beginning of the project, they've all gone, and the bulbs are rotten. This back end of this plant is just rotten. It's just falling apart, as you can see. So that's all got to come off. Now that leaves a bulb round here that's looking a bit iffy and may have to go. I'm not happy with that bulb at all. That would leave 1 bulb, the last one that flowered, with good leaves and the lovely new shoot, which is enough to at least rescue the plant. The new growth hopefully can grow decent roots, and if it even attempted to flower, I would stop it this time round. Get a nice big bulb on here to go with this one, which compared with the previous bulb, even though that one's not very happy, is not as big, but it did bloom. So this is a very unhappy plant at the moment, and it needs dealing with now. So all of the old parts of the plant are going to have to come off, including this bulb here, even though the leaves aren't up to much. They're yellowing, so they're going to go soon anyway. And tidy up all the cut joints with cinnamon, and basically repot it into a nice small pot, nice tight pot, where hopefully it can grow on with this nice new bulb this year. So that's as it is now. I'm not going to class it as a miserable failure, but as my Cymbidium collection goes, it is not the best plant by far. I'd say it was my worst. But we will give it a go. So a video coming soon, probably during next week, will be to try and rescue this, see what sort of roots we've got on the last 2 bulbs, because that's all that's going to be left. The new growth and the bulb with the nice green leaves, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So there we go then. So that's the end of the project completely. This is the last video, and in a way I shall be glad to see the back of it, because it's been a complicated project, and quite honestly it has its followers, but it also has quite a percentage of my viewers that don't watch. So, you know, I'm producing a regular video for people to just think, oh, it's another one of them, I won't bother. Which is not ideal, is it? Anyway, we will put some thoughts into another project that may start later in the year or whatever, but I'm certainly not following it up with a project in the very near future. So anyway, for those of you who enjoyed the project Orchids, I hope you enjoyed this last one, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.